It's the evening in June of 2010, and a DEA sniffer dog has found something suspicious in the van of one of LA's top models. The dog is now sitting patiently in front of the van, and people in the know that this means only one thing. The dog has found something. The van is part of a 3-vehicle convoy that also had a Suburban and an Escalade. The convoy is clearly luxurious and is the type that could only belong to someone important. And the important person in this case is Lisette Lee. Lee immediately gets out of the van and starts shouting at the agents. She asks them if they know who she is, which is a dumb thing to say to authorities because either they know who she is and they don't care, or they don't know who she is and they still don't care. But whether or not they knew doesn't matter right now. What matters now is what the dog found. Later that evening, the police unload 13 heavy suitcases from the convoy. Lisette is asked to explain what's in the suitcases, and she explains that she's bringing supplies to a horse farm, which was total nonsense. Then, later that night, she confesses that the contents of the suitcases have to do with weapons and money laundering or something. But even if that isn't true, the suitcases are all filled to the brim with devil's lettuce, and Ms. Lisette Lee, who claims she's a Vogue model / Korean pop star / Samsung heiress, is actually a budding illegal substances transporter who regularly transports over 500 pounds of illicit substances from California to Ohio. The police searched her purse and they found spicy snow, $6,500 in cash, and a ledger for the volume of weight she was moving. Lisette Lee, the famous Beverly Hills celebrity model, had been busted. The only question that remained was how she even got there in the first place. Before she was arrested for smuggling weight on a private jet from California to Ohio, Lisette Lee led a pretty extraordinary life. She was a model, an actress who played herself in certain cameos, an heiress, and had money to spend. She had quite the childhood, too. She claimed that she had gone to LA prep school Buckley. This was the same school that Paris Hilton went to, and Lisette told everyone who cared to listen that Hilton herself had begged for Lisette's friendship when they were at the school. She also said she had met Kim Kardashian there as well and thought nothing of her because Kim was what she described as a fat Armenian. Lisette, who also said that she had attended a London finishing school and then had rounded up her studies at Harvard. All of that is pretty impressive. But Lisette isn't quite done impressing you yet. She also said that she was an heiress to Samsung on her mother's side and said that her father's family had founded Sony and also owned a chain of very successful casinos in Japan. She then said that she was a very successful pop star in Asia, but her powerful and disapproving parents had blocked all evidence of her performances from being seen in the United States. On her MySpace page, also known as Old Facebook, she had luxury cars, jewelry, and everything else you think a model of her caliber would have. She had 2 Bentleys, a purse-sized lapdog, lived in a $1.2 million West Hollywood apartment, and called herself the Korean Paris Hilton, even though they weren't friends. She also claimed that she dated Cristiano Ronaldo, Leonardo DiCaprio, and Channing Tatum. Our heiress Lisette went shopping at the best places, ate the best food, wore the most luxurious clothes, and for all practical purposes, lived up to her title as the Korean Paris Hilton. The only difference was that Paris Hilton's actual name was Paris Hilton, and Lisette Lee was living what could be generally regarded as a false life. Lisette wasn't just extremely flashy and wealthy. She was also extremely sociopathic. At the end of her legal travails, one of her closest friends told Rolling Stone that Lisette's face ought to be on the Wikipedia page for sociopath. She used everyone and anyone she could lay her hands on. This extended right from her personal relationships to the romantic relationships she cultivated. She always wanted to be the most important person in the room, and she made sure she punished anyone who didn't want that. People were drawn to her beauty and money, but they were also entranced by her unending demands for subservience. And it was made all the more entrancing by her frank inability to be cowered to by anyone. One day, one of her boyfriends, yes, for she had many such boyfriends at the same time, introduced her to record producer Bradley Spalter, who had worked with Aaron Neville and the boy band O-Town. Bradley was interested in signing her since she claimed that she was a Korean pop star, and Lisette went to the studio for a session. Once she got there, she found the most intimidating man in the room, a 300-pound upcoming rapper, and immediately tossed him her keys and asked him to park her car for her. And she made sure she called him the N-word while at it. The entire room was stunned into silence and then exploded into laughter. Bradley immediately exclaimed that she was a star. Yes, our girl Lisette Lee was a star. 4 years before she was arrested, she got a friend to introduce her to innocent-looking Meili Cady. Cady was an aspiring actress from the small town of Bremerton, Washington, and was looking for some help in the big city. Lisette started as that help, and before long, both girls became as thick as thieves. Lisette loved Cady because she was a middle-class, simple girl, new to the trappings of stardom, and Cady loved Lisette because she naively believed there was some hidden good in her. But before long, Lisette started to control Cady. The relationship turned from one between two slightly unequal friends to one between master and servant. Lisette never failed to remind Cady of her destitute position in relation to her, and always told her that she could be replaced in an instant. Cady endured because, well, what else was there to do? She very well couldn't leave this high-class lifestyle alone, could she? Lisette also dated many men. When she met Cady, she had a fairly serious relationship with Christian Navarro, a celebrity wine entrepreneur whose job was to curate the cellars of Hollywood celebrities. She even got engaged to Navarro, but also started seeing a struggling actor named Scott Brian Cooper. Lisette juggled both men for a while before she abandoned Cooper for his friend, a high school dropout named David Garrett. Garrett was a guy with a bunch of tattoos who also sold the green along with a whole host of other illegal substances. When Cooper complained about being dumped for Garrett, Lisette sent some guys over to intimidate him by mugging him, taking his stuff, and leaving him by the side of the road. She's a real sweetheart like that. By the time Lisette's lies were exposed, she had dumped Garrett and dated another man while dating a bouncer she hired for her illicit private jet transport trips. Through all this, she manipulated and lied to all the men she was seeing, telling them that they were important to her. In the end, all those men were merely a means to an end. The truth about Lisette only came out after the police arrested her. Once she was arrested, court documents and witness statements revealed the unbelievable truth about Lisette, her claims to wealth, and her family background. To be fair, Lisette did get one thing right. According to Rolling Stone, Lisette really is related to the Samsung Lee family, but she's not an heiress. Lisette was born out of wedlock back in Seoul to Corinne Lee, a daughter of the late Samsung founder Yang Chul Lee. Her real name at birth was Ji Yun Lee. Ji Yun Lee's problem was that her father, Yoshi Morita, was a Japanese casino mogul, which meant that he wasn't a suitable mate for someone with Corinne Lee's pedigree. Korean tradition didn't look too kindly upon inter-ethnic marriages, and Koreans believe that people who own casinos were gangsters. We totally don't think that in the US, right? Since neither family wanted to claim the child, Yoshi allowed his daughter to be adopted by his very close friend, Bum Jo Lee. Jo Lee was commonly known as Master Lee due to his 6th-degree black belt in martial arts, and he tried to give Ji Yun Lee, now Lisette, a proper upbringing. He didn't send her to the private schools like she told everyone. Instead, he sent her to a basic public school, and she grew up in a basic apartment, not a mansion. Through all of this, Lisette's father remained in the picture, and she milked that connection for all it was worth. She made sure he showered her with expensive gifts and gave her a ridiculously high allowance. He bought her a Mercedes for her 16th birthday and essentially gave her a taste of the good life. According to Rolling Stone, he gave her an insane monthly allowance close to $100,000. Once Lisette started living on her own, she decided to reinvent herself, not as the ordinary adopted daughter of Master Lee, but as the millionaire heiress of two very wealthy parents. She indeed tried being a Korean pop star and model, but gave up as she complained that it was too easy for her. Oddly enough, that was our reason for her not being a K-pop model as well. And then, one day, for no reason at all, she decided to reinvent herself again, but this time as a member of the substance dealing underworld. Lisette first learned about buying and selling spicy greens from one of her boyfriends, Garrett. Garrett was already in the business, and Lisette wanted to be his understudy for whatever reason. He told her there was a lot of money to be made if one could move hundreds of pounds of product from California to Ohio, and that he could help set up all the payment channels. Garrett said that they could earn double their expenses once they sold all the product too. For some reason, Lisette was very hyped to get started. She put together a team, and it had everyone in her circle she had forced to cower to her total social authority. This included her friend Cady, her building's doorman, Henry Hernandez, who she was also dating at the time, and Garrett, who did the actual business. The smuggling itself was supposed to be simple. 13 cases of product would be packed and all loaded into a private jet that cost about $50,000 to hire. The plane would land in Ohio, and Lisette and her entire entourage would make it hard for anyone to suspect her of anything. Lisette was thinking everyone would suspect Garrett if he hired the private jet and loaded the suitcases in it to cross the country. But no one would suspect the model slash heiress slash pop star slash celebrity like Lisette for doing the same thing. They would chalk it up to regular celebrity shenanigans. And that's how the gig began. At first, Cady and the rest of the crew didn't know what they were getting into. But after the first few trips, they all knew. But it was hard to back out. She was paying all of them quite handsomely to be part of her star entourage, and her control over them was absolute. Lisette took care of travel plans through a chartered jet broker and sent hundreds of thousands of dollars in payments through Cady's small bank account. She paid $50,000 for each jet charter, but she was moving so much weight that it didn't matter. After all, she was selling at around 100% profit margin. Lisette and her crew were soon taking 2 to 3 trips from California to Ohio monthly, and each time she had the same boring story for airport officials who asked what was in her suitcase. She always said she was moving from LA to Columbus, but the jet company had assigned her the same pilot more than once. And those pilots started wondering how many times one person could relocate from California to Ohio in 1 year. Airport personnel also realized that Lisette was making these trips twice or thrice a month, and that it looked very suspicious as well. At this point, Garrett and Lisette had fallen out due to a business disagreement. You would expect this to dampen Lisette's spirits and stop her from going on the trip since she technically didn't need the money. But instead of doing that, she decided to become a complete underground queenpin and hired someone to replace Garrett. The person happened to be Christopher Cash, a jet broker who'd also quickly deciphered what Lisette was doing with all her trips and decided to join her. To make things even spicier, Lisette also started dating Mr. Cash. The trips continued, and very soon the DEA office in Ohio got an anonymous tip about a highly suspicious flight coming in from California to Ohio. By the time Lisette landed in Ohio in June 2010, the airport was surrounded by DEA agents and sniffing dogs. It didn't take too long for Lisette to confess to her part in the crimes. Once Cady and other members of her staff were interrogated, the truth came out. The truth about her ancestry and her birth was also revealed. Of course, Samsung had to intervene because Lisette wouldn't stop claiming that she was part of the popular Samsung Lee family. The corporation put out a press release that completely disavowed her and said she had never been a part of the family, though some think the company might have done that just to protect its name. When she finally faced a judge, Lisette had thrown in the towel with a guilty plea. It was her only chance of getting a lower sentence since the evidence was stacked against her. The judge decided to sentence her to 6 years. Her conspirators, like Garrett, were also tracked down and arrested. Garrett got 10 years for his part in the gig, and Christopher Cash got 4 years in prison as well. Lisette's so-called best friend Cady got a month in prison and a year under house arrest. Despite her short-lived criminal empire crumbling all around her, Lisette still seemed to be in high spirits. According to Rolling Stone, she never admitted to really lying to anyone. She said she omitted certain truths and people around her just filled it up with their imagination. She also said that was merely the fault of their own stupidity and could never be bothered to actually correct them. According to Lisette, it was merely an incredible coincidence that all her friends made up the same lies about her and she never actually told them those lies. It has to make you wonder if Lisette Lee really believes this or if she's just telling another lie. In prison, Lisette made sure to have the time of her life. According to Rolling Stone, she took her prison time as a vacation of some sort and generally had a fun time, or so she told Rolling Stone. If you're enjoying this video, be sure to stay right here for our past release to find out how this girl made scamming a lifestyle. Importantly, Lisette believed that there was life for her after prison. She said that she was going to go into the casino business properly once she got out, and she'd promptly resume her celebrity lifestyle. She also said that she believes that she's still kind of engaged to Christian Navarro and expects to marry him once she was out. However, Navarro, on the other hand, said no whenever he heard that statement. As of early 2024, Lisette Lee is yet to be confirmed to actually be released from prison, but since she only was sentenced to 6 years, she's most likely walking around as a free woman. Due to information protection laws, it's difficult to figure out exactly what she's up to these days. But we can only wonder what the gangster Queen of Beverly Hills is up to. Danielle Miller is an Instagram influencer with a large following. She's known for her glamorous, jet-setting lifestyle. She posted photos at luxury California hotels and on first-class international flights. But Miller's utopia came to a screeching halt when she was arrested on charges of wire fraud. She was accused of stealing the identity of a Massachusetts resident to open a bank account and apply for a COVID-19 small business relief loan worth more than $100,000. She used this money, which was intended for struggling businesses during the pandemic, to fund her expensive habits. Court documents showed that she charged her $5,000 luxury hotel bill from the Petit Hermitage to the fraudulent bank account and then posted a photo with a geotag for the location. Prosecutors took Miller's Instagram photos, which she once used for likes and attention, and used them against her, proving how she used the money for the wrong reasons. If convicted, Miller faces a $250,000 fine and up to 20 years in prison. But this isn't the first time she's gotten into trouble for scamming, and it certainly won't be the last. Miller comes from wealthy Manhattan parents and grew up in an apartment next to the Ritz-Carlton overlooking Central Park. Her father, Michael Miller, was a real estate attorney and former president of the New York State Bar Association. Her mother was a rockette for 20 years before she became a full-time stay-at-home mom. Miller first realized her love for attention at the prestigious Horace Mann School. It was 2004. Miller was in 8th grade when her crush dared her via AOL Instant Messenger to prove she wasn't prude. She grabbed her Swiffer mop and pressed record. She sent 3 videos to the boy, who sent them to his best friend. Soon enough, the entire school had seen the videos, and Miller had a new nickname, Swiffer Girl. She had attended Horace Mann since she was 2 years old, but it took only a few seconds of video footage to completely change her reputation. People whispered about her. Parents told their children not to invite her over. Miller was so embarrassed that she stayed home for a week and debated switching schools. But she didn't. By 9th grade, Miller decided to ditch her nice, quiet girl identity and embrace her new reputation. She got a fake ID and started drinking and partying. Miller remembers herself as Horace Mann's it girl. For her Sweet 16, her parents threw her a huge party and hired a Rod Stewart impersonator to sing Hot Legs. Miller's friends said she tried to pass him off as the real Rod Stewart, which she denies. Another friend claimed Miller lied about her father owning their apartment building. Her friends quickly caught on to her constant lies. Miller even admitted it, and this was just the beginning. Desperate to escape the reputation that followed her through high school, she moved across the country for college, enrolling at Arizona State University. When she told people she went to Horace Mann, they asked if she knew Swiffer Girl. A fraternity brother told the entire school about her in a university-wide email. Someone shoved a letter under her dorm room door saying that they knew about her past. She graduated from ASU in 2012 and moved to Los Angeles, living at the Hollywood Roosevelt Hotel in a pool cabana suite and working various PR jobs. She started dating a rich DJ and mingling with celebrities like Paris Hilton, David Arquette, Pharrell, and Skrillex. By 2013, Miller found herself with a new group of friends, including socialite Quentin Esme Brown. Brown climbed up the fame ladder herself, marrying reality TV star P.C. Peterson, the grandson of the founder of the private equity firm Blackstone. At their Las Vegas wedding, Tiffany Trump was their flower girl. One day, Brown got an angry phone call from her mother about a $20,000 credit card bill. Brown went to the bank and asked them to print out all of the checks written from her account in the past month. 5 of the checks were made out to Danielle Miller. Brown's mother called Miller's father, who cut her off from any further financial support and returned her leased Mercedes to the dealership. Still, she continued spending wildly on designer bags and expensive dinners. Hoping to get her life back on track, Miller applied and was accepted to Pepperdine University Law School in 2016. The summer after her first year, she moved to New York City, where she secured an internship with a family friend and New York justice. She was good at the job, but continued her spending habits. She used her stolen credit card information to go to the Body Factory salon on the Upper West Side. When the credit card was reported twice for fraud, the spa noticed. When she went back to New York for Thanksgiving and booked an appointment at the spa, she was met by the police. She was charged with identity theft and grand larceny. Miller tried to sweet-talk the arresting officer, saying that her father is the head of the bar association. She was interning for a judge, and she hadn't even made the appointments herself. Her assistant did. It didn't work. Her connections did help at court, but her law career was put on hold. At this point, her father said that he didn't want any contact with his daughter anymore. Her mother said she still wanted a relationship, but cut her off soon after. In California, Miller met Mackenzie Day, a model with Marine veteran working in marketing. He saw Miller's potential as a clever marketer and decided to launch a PR firm together. Day thought Miller's father was financially supporting her the whole time. When Day wanted to end the relationship, Miller tried to stop him by saying she was suicidal. Day called the police, who brought her to the hospital for a psychiatric evaluation. He was able to get into her email account and discovered that she opened several credit cards and took out business loans in his name. Miller denied the loans and insisted that she and Day took out the credit cards together. She stole nearly $200,000 from him and their friend. To this day, Miller continues to deny it. After serving as a Marine in 2 wars, Day still calls his experience with Miller one of the most insane he's ever had. A few months later, she was arrested at the San Diego-Mexico border after a birthday trip with friends. She missed a court appearance in New York for the fraudulent spa charges and was picked up on a warrant. She pleaded guilty and was sentenced to a year at Rikers Island. At Rikers, she met Sierra Blast, another scammer who was in jail for violating parole after being convicted of identity theft. Blast was first arrested at Bergdorf Goodman in 2015 for stealing people's credit card information to go on a $20,000 shopping spree. Miller and Blast became fast friends in jail. In 2020, when Miller ran into Blast at a restaurant in Manhattan's Upper East Side, they devised a plan. Miller would be the trapper and take on the persona of a stolen identity, while Blast did more of the behind-the-scenes work. During COVID, they flew to Miami and rented a 2-bedroom apartment. They went on joyrides and Rolls Royces and shopping sprees at Balmain and Gucci. That spring, when stores started opening again, Miller tried to withdraw $8,000 from a woman's bank account, which triggered Chase Bank to call 911. Miller and Blast were arrested in possession with 3 fake driver's license and credit cards, 6 cell phones, and $25,000 cash. They pleaded not guilty. Miller went back to prison for the 2nd time that year. Blast bailed Miller out of jail, and she quickly got to work on a new scam. This time, she targeted the federal government. She hacked into the Massachusetts Registry of Motor Vehicles to steal 27 identities. Then she used people's information to apply for 10 loans from the Small Business Association, including the Economic Injury Disaster Loan. Several applications were denied, but one of them was successful. The federal government deposited $125,000 into a bank account Miller opened in another person's name. Over the next 8 months, Miller received 4 more loans worth nearly $1 million. She used another stolen identity to defraud Arizona out of more than $6,000 in unemployment benefits. Miller saw the COVID pandemic as an opportunity to kick her scamming expertise into motion. She denies learning any of her skills at Rikers. Instead, she did some internet searching and downloaded Telegram to join group chat that discussed where to find people's personal information. One time, she challenged herself to find Warren Buffett's social security number. She found it quickly. Using the money she secured through SBA loans, Miller led the extravagant lifestyle she craved. She bragged about her Chanel, Gucci, and Prada outfits on Instagram. She booked private jets from Miami to LA, and where she spent nearly $6,000 at the Petit Hermitage, 8 expensive dinners at the Beverly Hills Hotel, and drove a Rolls Royce down the streets. In Miami, she rented a swank, white, marble-clad apartment under one of her victims' name. According to Miller, she paid for everything with her own money and received DMs from scammers around the world begging to work with her. In May 2021, Miller got a Brazilian butt lift surgery and was recovering in the comfort of her Miami apartment with 2 private nurses and an OxyContin prescription. One day, she received a phone call from the front desk asking her to report to the front lobby. She opened her front door and federal agents busted inside. In Miller's apartment, agents discovered a Rolex, Dior blouse and shoes, Louis Vuitton bag, and Rimowa luggage, believed to be purchased with the SBA loan money. They seized $4,000 cash, $28,000 worth of money orders, several fake IDs and bank cards. On one of her iPhones, feds found emails between Miller Miller, posing as someone else, and Chime Financial, saying that she was in tears over her money being held hostage by the bank. She tried to book a private flight under someone else's name, but the company sent federal agents a photo of the license Miller used to book the reservation. The ID was a Massachusetts driver's license with Miller's picture, someone else's name. More incriminating evidence came from ATM security footage that showed a mask covering much of her face, but the signature wishbone necklace gave her away. Authorities also connected her to a zip card that Miller rented with yet another fake ID. In the car, agents found a government document with the name Danielle Miller on it. So far, feds have seized more than $600,000 from Miller. While on house arrest awaiting trial, Miller decided to occupy her time with social media's newest trend, TikTok. She uses TikTok to show off her life against the advice of her probation officer. Despite being locked inside, Miller found new ways to draw attention to herself. One article from Model on a Mission magazine calls Miller an entrepreneur and philanthropist who started an organization to raise money for orphan children in Botswana and supports Miley Cyrus's Happy Hippie Foundation and Pepperdine's Micro Enterprise Program. But this article, which is full of praise, is likely a paid post written by Miller herself. Unknown to many of her TikTok subscribers and magazine readers, Miller is actually sitting at home all day with a bulky black tracking monitor on her ankle. In May 2021, Danielle was arrested and indicted on 3 counts of wire fraud and 2 counts of aggravated identity theft. Each charge of wire fraud carries a possible 20-year prison sentence, 3 years of supervised release, and a $250,000 fine. The aggravated identity theft charges each carry a mandatory 2-year prison sentence, 1 year of supervised release, and a $250,000 fine. She pleaded not guilty to all charges. Despite all of her scamming, Miller seems to be in dire need of cash. She posted on Facebook about an open room in her Greenwich Village 3-bedroom apartment for $1,200 per month. She offered to lease the place on a month-to-month basis with no credit or background check required. But instead of being intrigued by the beautiful apartment, commenters seem to be more interested in the opportunity to live with scammer extraordinaire and Swiffer girl, the Danielle Miller. In late October of 2022, Danielle was sentenced to 5 years in prison for a separate charge of bank fraud in Florida. Her case was heard in the 12th Judicial Circuit Court in Sarasota, where Judge Thomas Krug gave her the max sentence. She still faces trial in late November of 2022 for her pandemic loan-related charges. Click to watch one of these next videos. Let us know in the comments section what you'd rather have: free alcohol for life or free gas for life.